Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys tonight. As Shia Muslims take over Westminster Bridge, is that intimidating? In other news, Rachel Reeves went for growth.
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government.
But it's fair to say, not everyone was happy.
Probably shows you just how out of touch His Majesty's Treasury are with reality.
Meanwhile, over in Donald Trump's America,
If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal.
they're still deporting illegals, whereas over here, that Sudanese asylum seeker is a serial sex attacker, and we refuse to get rid of him. Also, the NHS defied government orders and hired a load more diversity officers. Meanwhile, their boss is pleading poverty.
Does consume most of the £10.6 billion that you just discussed.
Is the NHS's obsession with diversity killing people? And
at 6'2", weighing 100 kilos and blessed with a mighty kicking boot, Hannah Mounsey should have been a shoo-in to play at the elite level of the women's Aussie Rules competition.
But it turns out he's a massive bloke. And now, over here, 2 teenage girls have been banned from playing football because they asked whether men were on the other team. The answer, by the way, was yes. Ridiculous. Also tonight...
Hello, I'm John Perimbalas. I'm delighted and humbled to have received this call to come and serve among you.
Well, that's another Church of England bishop that's accused of sexual assault. How deep does the rock go? And remember that guy who called Trump a fascist? Yeah, here he is now.
I consider my remarks about President Trump as ill-judged and wrong.
Toe curling, isn't it? On my panel tonight is Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Nina Mishkov. And have you ever wondered what being on magic mushrooms feels like? Oh, and what happens next here with this state-of-the-art fighter jet? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Liberals have turned Britain into a playground for Sudanese sex monsters. Next.
Patrick, thank you very much. The top stories. The Chancellor has backed the expansion of Heathrow Airport in a speech outlining her plans to boost economic growth. Rachel Reeves claims a new runway will connect the UK to the world and open up new opportunities, including creating 100,000 jobs. While the London Mayor Sadiq Khan has this evening said that he can't support those plans, which, quote, would damage our environment and place huge demand on our transport infrastructure. Sir Keir Starmer was challenged over the government's plans for growth at Prime Minister's questions this morning. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch mainly focused on the Employment Rights Bill, repeatedly asking if it would be dropped because it fails his test for delivering growth. She also accused Sir Keir of misleading the House.
It is business that creates growth. Our economy is built by entrepreneurs, risk takers, and the hard graft of working people. They know that you can't tax your way to growth. You can't borrow your way to growth. You can't legislate your way to growth. Other countries are serious about freeing business from red tape. President Trump is doing it in America. Argentina is taking a chainsaw to regulations. Even the EU is not going as far as this left-wing government. This bill will put us at the bottom of the pack. Add it to the jobs tax, the family business tax. It's no wonder wealth creators are fleeing Britain in droves.
Well, the Prime Minister, in a reference to Liz Truss, warned Ms Badenoch that she'd become the next lettuce, claiming the Conservatives left the economy in a mess.
Mr Speaker, I understand she likes straight talking. She's talking absolute nonsense. She knows, and anybody who understands anything about the bill or any employment law will know you can't start in the morning and go to the tribunal in the afternoon. Now, Mr Speaker, we know she's not a lawyer. She's clearly not a leader. If she keeps on like this, she is going to be the next lettuce.
And Donald Trump has signed the Laken-Riley Act, the first legislation to get his signature since his return to the White House. The bill is named after a Georgia nursing student who was murdered last year by a Venezuelan man. It requires the detention of unauthorised immigrants accused of theft and violent crimes.
Under the law I'm signing today, the Department of Homeland Security will be required to detain all illegal aliens who have been arrested for theft, burglary, larceny, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, murder, or any crime that results in death or serious injury. In addition, for the first time ever, this act gives state governments the ability to sue the federal government for immediate injunctive relief if any future administration ever again refuses to enforce the immigration laws of the United States.
And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Illegal immigrants are raping and abusing women and girls, and they're getting away with a slap on the wrist. In America, anybody who entered the country illegally is now classed as a criminal.
Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation.
Over here, we let them break into Britain, sexually assault vulnerable women at will, give them a slap on the wrist, and let them stick around so they can live a life on taxpayer-funded benefits. Meet Ali Hamad, a Sudanese monster who literally will not stop attacking women. In Wales, he sexually assaulted a woman and slapped another in the face 3 times after she rejected his advances. Before that, he groped an off-duty police officer on a London bus and then masturbated in front of her. Earlier last year, he was found masturbating on a busy London street. On the same day, another lady said she was approached by him from behind and he touched her back with his penis. On November 11th, he appeared at Croydon Magistrates Court, where he was sentenced to a 12-week jail term for the London offences. But because of time already served on remand, he was released shortly after that hearing and then moved to Cardiff to sofa surf with friends. What do you think happened then? Oh, yes. At 3:20 a.m. on November the 24th, he approached two women in their early 20s who were returning home from a party in ball gowns and heels. Now, that's when he then went on to attack them. For the Cardiff offences, his punishment is 8 months in prison and paying 300 quid in compensation to one victim and 250 quid to the other. The judge also gave him a 10-year sexual harm prevention order, which means he can't be alone with a woman unless she knows his convictions. Are you mental? A bloke who has no qualms about breaking into Britain, masturbating in public and sexually assaulting women on the street is not going to be bothered about a sex harm prevention order, is he? Why aren't we just sending this animal back to Sudan? I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, that our Foreign Secretary David Lammy released this video recently telling us that we mustn't forget Sudan.
When I came into office, I was determined that Britain would not look the other way. In November, we won support from all but Russia on a resolution for peace in Sudan at the UN Security Council.
I'm sure that the women that monster attacked will not forget Sudan in a hurry, Mr Lammy. On Monday, I told you about illegal immigrants allegedly hanging around primary schools taking videos of young girls. Well, now here's another classic of the genre. A Bibi Stockholm asylum seeker accused of sexual assault has gone missing. Do you know why we don't know where he is? Oh, because this government closed the Bibi Stockholm. So there we go. Another asylum seeker in a hotel in Weymouth was up for a sex assault charge. He's done a runner as well. When you see stuff like this going on in America...
It's going very well. We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get, as bad as anybody you've seen. We're taking them out first.
You realise, don't you, politicians in Britain are making a political choice to keep foreign rapists and sex attackers right here. Let's get the views of my panel this evening. We've got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've also got landlord and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Mark, I'll start with you on this. You know, that guy, why can't we just send him back to Sudan? You know, how many women and girls have to be attacked? He's got an addiction to it.
Yeah, no, you're quite right, Patrick, to highlight these cases. You know, each case will be different. But my rule would be similar to the one that the Trump administration has just imposed. At some point of breaking the law, you are not welcome in the United Kingdom. I mean, I might let you off with a parking ticket, say, yeah. but once you're getting into these sort of offences, I would say probably the cut-off point is a custodial sentence. That's it, you're out. Yeah. And I think we need to reinvestigate something like the Rwanda scheme. You can argue about which country you want to pick if we can't send them directly back to their own country. But it is soft-touch stuff. And you're right, Patrick, it's a political choice. Look at the political choice the Americans have made. Now, perhaps you think Trump's going too far, too fast, but it's doable. Yeah. We will have to unravel our human rights law culture to get there if we want something similar here. But that's the only way we can go. And you know what? If people knew they're going to be kicked out, that's quite a deterrent to not commit those crimes while they're here as well.
Well, quite. But if the only argument for keeping this guy or people like him in the country is that it would contravene the ECHR, surely we just obviously have to leave the ECHR.
Look, people go on about human rights for these rapists and these sex attackers or paedophiles. What about the human rights of the poor girls that get attacked or women that get stalked and harassed? We've got to start putting our own people first again. Since 2018, we've had 150,000 illegal immigrants cross the channel on these boats. I would say we know maybe 20,000 of them, their pasts or their criminal histories. We've got undocumented, unverifiable men in our communities. And I've spent all week looking at paedophile sting accounts online. It is nearly always Middle Eastern men, North African men or Pakistani men that are targeting children in this country within days or weeks of arriving here. We've got a serious, serious problem. And as a father of two daughters, I know I say it a lot, at one point you're going to have one of these migrants killed, whether it be from a dad or a husband or a brother. Enough is enough, Patrick. We need hard laws, hard sentences. 8 months. He should be in there for 8 years.
Well, I don't really see why he should be here. I mean, Nina, what's your view on this? I mean, we've had a catalogue of stories there. We had the issue earlier on in the week where allegedly some migrants were hanging around a primary school. We've also had, a couple of the Bibby Stockholm lot are on the run at the moment. This guy obviously literally cannot stop sexually assaulting women, it seems. Do we not just have to deport them, even if it's to a war-torn country?
The Home Office actually has a duty to deport anyone who gets a custodial sentence of 12 months or over. Now, he doesn't make it in this case, and he is obviously a repellent, disturbed individual, and you have to look at it in terms of practicalities. He's not been stopped so far. He's now got a custodial sentence. He's been stopped. So hopefully, the point of jailing somebody is to get them off the streets, to punish them and to rehabilitate them. There is some chance that within that space he can be assessed and released on the condition that if he offends again, he's out. And I don't say keep them here. I mean, if they are criminal offenders, then they should go. They should be sent. Well, I don't want them here either.
I think as well.
And we have another homegrown gropers. I mean, and it's not just Asians. There was that horrible case in Glasgow this week.
I've never said it's just...
no, but I'm saying you're saying the majority.
I say it less ethically than you. We've got enough scumbags in this country. Yeah. We don't need to import more.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And you cannot rehabilitate. I don't care what you say. If his mindset is to keep attacking women, he could do 5 years in prison. He will still do it again at some point in his life. Yeah. Same as paedophiles. We should deport him. Sod his human rights. I don't care if he's going to be attacked in Sudan.
You don't know that.
There's a strong indication, Nina, because, I mean, the guy keeps masturbating in public. Right?
Yeah, you can't just deport. There are far worse crimes. I mean, I loathe this. I mean, every woman.
Not many.
Every woman fears this sort of guy. Okay, and it's repulsive. And down the decades.
Why don't we just have a simple rule? If you're not a British citizen and you commit a crime and it leads to any custodial sentence, you're out. And, it needs to be quite a serious crime to lead to a custodial sentence. I'm not going to kick somebody out for jumping a red light or a parking fine. But if you're being locked up, you have seriously infringed the laws and the rules of the United Kingdom.
I agree.
And I think at that point we make it plain you're not welcome.
Well, I think a year is probably a good bar to set.
I just want to put this point to you, and then I'll work my way down the panel as well. Do you think, in light of cases like this and what we're seeing in the United States, that keeping people like this in Britain is now a political choice?
It is a political choice, but the political choice really, Patrick, is the one that you highlighted. You need two things to go in your favour to change this. One is the political will of the government, which we do not have, and the second is the determination to change the law. You've mentioned the ECHR already. So if you just had a government that wanted to do this, but it didn't touch the ECHR or the Human Rights Act, they would get absolutely tied up in the red tape of human rights.
What would seriously actually happen if we just put this guy on a plane and flew him to
a court would intervene.
Why not?
A court would intervene to say that we had infringed the Human Rights Act.
We get a warning.
I just said I don't care. I don't care about
whoever allowed the plane to take off would be in breach of a court order and would then face some sort of legal sanction. So you need to change the balance between those political decisions and the human rights lawyers being able to stop it. At the moment, they can.
But also, I would like to say that this government has deported 16,400...
Of mostly, like, Brazilians.
Never mind Brazilians, never mind who they are. They've deported 16,400, which is the largest number for 5 years. May I say 4
Most
to Rwanda, and all of those were voluntary. 16,400 were not voluntary.
A lot were voluntary.
Oh, come on.
But can we just say...
So let's just say, you know that the Conservatives really failed to get a grip on it.
Yeah, nobody disagrees.
No,
absolutely disgraceful.
Not even the leader of the Conservative Party.
Absolutely disgraceful.
Viewers need to know that as soon as we try and deport this guy to Sudan, no matter how bad he's behaved to women or children, a lefty lawyer...
Nobody said children. Nobody said children.
There's
don't say
women.
that.
There are lefty lawyers or charitable organisations that will step in...
Don't have to be lefty lawyers. They can just be lawyers.
Let me speak, please, Nina. And they will give him advice and they will fight his corner to keep him in this country. They are the enemy of this country, these lefty lawyers and these charities.
These lefty
he should be
lawyers...
taken to Sudan.
You're
I don't
obsessed.
care if he gets his arm's pulled off as soon as he lands. It's not our problem. They pretend to be gay half the time. They pretend to be persecuted. They pretend everything.
This is an awful man who does dreadful things, OK, and potentially could go on to do things that are far worse. We all understand that. But you are extrapolating this to the sort of nth degree, so it becomes almost hysterical.
I am hysterical. I'm a father.
Do you agree with me, Nina, that we need a very clear line of it's a privilege to be given safe haven in this country?
I agree.
You're not a British citizen. And it seems to me, obviously I didn't sit in court for the case, but this behaviour should clearly lead to that privilege being rescinded. Clearly lead to it. I mean, this is a complete abuse of the hospitality that we have shown it.
The thing is, the cut-off point is 12 months,
well,
and he got 8 months. No, it's not too high.
Just put this to you. Would you sit on a bus on your own with him?
No, I would not.
So why should other people?
No, but then hopefully that he will be monitored, or he can change in some way.
Last week, Patrick, we left the show. We walked you to the station, didn't we?
Absolutely.
And I wanted to make sure that you was OK getting on the train. And that's not because there's lovely people out there. There are people like this man that will try things with you, Nina.
Look, I've lived a lot longer than you. I've had decades of sexist decades where men grope you, men, think they can just do what they like. And I am a perfectly strong individual, and I have navigated my way through all of this. I don't like somebody like that. But at the same time, you have to say people do have human rights.
OK.
They do have human rights, and they're going to be taken.
They forfeit them when they do this.
OK, a lively start. Thank you very much. Thank you. OK, I've got loads more coming your way. We're about to have a real rip-roaring debate, actually, because you'll not believe what the NHS have done. Well, you might, actually, when it comes to diversity, but stay tuned for that. Before that, though, of course, time is running out for your chance to win £50,000 in the Great British Giveaway. Here's how you can make that money yours.
There's just 2 days left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
It's such a nice feeling.
Just go for it.
It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win.
I was on cloud nine.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Don't miss out, as lines close on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, welcome along. So, still to come, the Church of England, believe it or not, is embroiled in yet another scandal after the Bishop of Liverpool was forced to deny sexual assault allegations. How deep does this alleged rot go? But first, NHS bosses are ignoring government orders to stop hiring woke diversity and inclusion staff. They've hired dozens since Labour came to power. Is the NHS's obsession with diversity now actually killing patients? I've got some astonishing stats for you. Stay tuned.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
That's football. Well, it's the hope that kills you.
It does. It gives you highs, it gives you lows. I mean, if you're an Everton fan at the moment, you probably had far too many lows. But as you know, I'm a Nottingham Forest fan.
Well, you must be having a huge high.
But you had one of the greatest footballers ever to grace the game, Mike, and that was Dixie Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. William Ralph Dean. Didn't like being called Dixie, but that was his nickname. And he was born in 1907. He was my grandfather's best mate. I'm an Everton shareholder. I've been, attached to the club all my life, and so was my father, so was my grandfather, our greatest ever player.
So back in the day when players like Dixie Dean were playing football for big crowds in, a proper...
72,000.
Yeah, a proper working class sport back in the day, weren't it, football? Not like it is today. You've got to be pretty wealthy to afford a ticket.
even in the 70s, right, and I've seen some, you know, I do like looking back on the football that I watched as a kid. Even in the 70s now, I've seen pictures of the turnstiles, as we used to call them, with a sign at the top, 5 shillings for the Eastern Terrace. 5 shillings. Yeah. Last time I turned down a ticket to go to a football match was Arsenal, who wanted me to pay £830 for a seat in an executive lounge. And though I could have afforded it, because I've worked all my life like you, I just thought at that point, that's ridiculous.
Well,
you know?
You should have told him you were Keir Starmer's security man. You'd have probably got him for nothing.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But you know, you go back to the the 1930s and 1940s, even the 1960s and 70s. You know, the footballers would walk to the ground and play a game, and then walk back and go for a few beers in the pub.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. At 10 p.m, I'll reveal which 2 Labour cabinet ministers are at each other's throats this evening. But first, is the NHS's obsession with putting diversity forward first actually killing patients? It's time for the head-to-head. Yes, that's right. The NHS is still hiring dozens of new equality and diversity staff despite government orders to stop it. So 35 jobs have been advertised since Labour came into power, some with salaries of more than 80 grand a year and options to work from home. NHS bosses are ignoring orders from the previous Tory government and the current Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who has told them to go back to basics, to not allow political ideology to get in the way of delivering for patients. But the London Ambulance Service certainly aren't paying any attention to that, are they? Look at that, their vehicles have got a nice woke new makeover and a TikTok account to promote it. Sorry about the heart attack, but don't worry, there's a nice LGBTQ plus friendly ambulance. That'll take the edge off. Meanwhile, elderly patients are waiting on trolleys in overcrowded A&E corridors. Just look at this shocking story in today's Sun newspaper with the headline, "Now even corridors are full." They published an image of a number of patients in the corridor. So is the NHS's obsession with diversity putting patients at risk? I want to hear from you on this. Make sure that you get involved on Your Say or on X. But joining me now is Conservative MP Joe Robertson and human rights campaigner and activist Peter Tatchell. Thank you very much. Great to have you both on. Joe, I'll start with you. Do you think this obsession with diversity is killing people?
It's certainly costing money, and it's money the NHS can't afford right now. Government has pledged, what, 10.6 billion a year? And earlier today, we hear that most of that, and this is on NHS England's analysis, most of that is going to get swallowed up with pay deals and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it hasn't got money to spend on painting ambulances and extra diversity roles.
Yeah, Peter, I mean, how can this be justified? We've got people in hospital corridors, we've got 7.5 million people at least on an NHS waiting list, people struggling to get GP appointments, but the NHS is happy to spend money on, you know, turning ambulances gay.
I agree the priority must be patient care, but having good quality staff who feel welcome and stay in their jobs, that's incredibly important too. And that's what diversity and equality does. Of these posts, there's only been 35 new posts advertised since June last year. 35 posts out of an NHS workforce of 1.5 million. The amount of money that's being spent on these diversity posts is less than £3 million out of an NHS budget of 192 billion. It's peanuts, it's nothing. I agree, let's make savings. So let's start by getting rid of the bloated middle management in the NHS. There are 40,000 managers in the NHS on salaries of 150 to 200 or even £300,000 a year. If we slim that down, we would save over £500 million. And if you really want to fund the necessary care for elderly people, which I totally support, have a wealth tax on the mega rich. A tiny 2% tax on people with assets of more than £10 million would raise a staggering £24 billion every year.
Until they leave, Peter, obviously, as you well know. And we currently are just a health service with a country attached. Joe, when you see the whatever he was called from the NHS today, you know, pleading poverty, rattling the can, doing his Oliver Twist impression there, where he's going, oh, sorry, here's 10.6 billion quid that you've given us, it barely touches the sides. You think, well, I'm sorry, but how on earth can they say that when they've got all these diversity officers on 80 grand a year and the rest, and the ambulances, and I mean, I think Bromley Hospital has got a rainbow flag painted all along the entire side of it, for goodness sake. How much did that cost?
So I think that, you know, the paint jobs for extra rainbows or whatever, and these extra diversity roles are, you know, tip of the iceberg in terms of NHS waste. And I agree with Peter that the middle management needs to be slimmed down, and I suspect these diversity staff would fit into that definition of middle management. The problem is the Labour government, the health secretary, is championing this 10.6 billion a year for 2 years that's going into the NHS, and that's going to cut waiting lists and do all sorts of good things. But then you've got a boss from NHS England, the chief financial officer, saying, well, that's just going to cover our increases in day-to-day spending, our pay deals and everything else. We've got national insurance contributions where GPs aren't covered. So on the one hand, you've got a health secretary saying this money is going to help save the NHS, and then you've got an NHS boss saying no, we'll just spend it on, you know, increases, average pressures that we get, you know, month on month, year on year. Those two things can't both be right.
No, sorry, Joe, I'll stick with you, and then I'll give Peter the final word on this. If the government has told, and Wes Streeting has, and your government, the previous administration did as well, told them to get back to basics and basically not hire these diversity staff, why don't we just force their sacking? Trump would. Trump has.
I'd appeal to the current health secretary to do that, to step in, take direct action. I mean, it's him, it's Wes Streeting who said no more money without reform, yet he's gone and given 10 billion a year without reform. OK, here's some reform, don't have those new diversity jobs. So he could have withheld the money. I mean, that's the ultimate power he's got. Get rid of these silly projects, whatever they are, get rid of some of your middle managers, and then you can have £10 billion a year and, you know, force it on them. But he didn't. He went money first, despite saying reform first.
Yeah, so Peter, why doesn't Wes Streeting now just man up and tell them to sack these people?
Because it's very simple. The research shows that private companies and public services that have good quality diversity programs attract the best staff and keep them. Those that don't have good policies, those that don't have good policies...
Peter, we've not had a problem recruiting people from abroad to the NHS.
And we do have a major recruitment problem, that many doctors and nurses are leaving the NHS. We have to stop that, and one way is making sure that the NHS is a friendly, supportive working environment, and that's what diversity is all about. And we know that if staff leave, then you have the huge cost of new recruitment, the time and resources, and the retraining of new staff. That's a waste of money. So if diversity programs can retain talented, qualified staff, that's a financial gain for the NHS.
I'm just having a look here. I've literally, just while you were talking there, just Googled NHS avoidable deaths. Deaths of 56 babies at Leeds Hospital may have been preventable. Long NHS delays in England leading to thousands of unnecessary deaths. UK high rate of avoidable deaths linked to NHS woes. This is just the first 3 articles that come up here. I'm sure those people who have lost relatives when they didn't need to will take a huge amount of comfort, Joe, from the fact that at some point a diversity officer popped up and patted everyone on the back and said, "Oh, fantastic, do you want to come to our big diverse party later?"
That's not what they say, Patrick. That's not what they're about at all. You cannot blame those deaths on diversity staff. The tiny number of diversity staff that exist, they're a tiny fragment out of the millions, the 1.5 million people in the NHS.
80 grand a year could fund you 2 more nurses, Peter. Good, I know which one I prefer.
Well, look, we need to fund the NHS, I agree. But as I said earlier, a tiny 2% wealth tax on the very rich would raise a staggering £24 billion for the NHS and social care every year. That's where you're going to get the money to fund the posts, to ensure that there are staff to save those patients' lives.
Very, very final and very quick word to you on this, Joe. Look, this whole woke stuff, you had 14 years to sort this out, and here we are. Why didn't you get to grips with it as a Conservative?
Well, you can see from the current health secretary as well, the NHS don't seem to be listening to what they're asked to do by health secretaries from 2 different parties. Look, I agree with Peter, you need a happy, healthy workforce. The NHS has, I would think, the most diverse workforce in the UK. I don't think a diversity manager is going to make that workforce feel any happier. What will make the workforce feel happier is to reduce the stress levels because of the funding problems they've got for new doctors and new nurses. We want the Labour government to succeed on this. We all want it to succeed. The early signs are a bit worrying.
All right, both of you, thank you very much. Good stuff, that is Conservative MP Joe Robertson and human rights campaigner and activist Peter Tatchell. Coming up, the Football Association have given a teenage girl a 6-match ban. Her heinous crime? Well, I'm going to tease you with that one, I'll let you know. But the FA appear to be censoring players, not exactly standing up for women's rights. But first, the Church of England is embroiled in yet another scandal. The Bishop of Liverpool was forced to deny sexual assault allegations. How deep does this rot go?
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow and across southern parts of Europe, there's quite a mixed picture. There is still some rain and even a bit of hill snow around, especially across northern parts of Spain into southern France. Elsewhere across Spain and Portugal, it's actually a bit drier and brighter than it has been recently, and similar across much of Italy for now, although there is some rain around and rain affecting Greece as well. There will be some further dry, bright weather to come as we go through into the weekend, with temperatures around or a touch above average for the time of year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. I'm here with your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. It's going to be a bit chilly for many of us overnight, and with that there is the risk of some icy patches developing, especially towards the north. Meanwhile, further south, we're still under the influence of an area of low pressure which is just off the coast of France, but it is bringing some heavy rain to immediate southern coastal parts, particularly towards the southeast. A lot of that is clearing away though as we go overnight, and so for many it's going to be a dry picture with some clear skies, but worth noting across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular, we are going to have some showers feeding in from the north, and with temperatures falling close to, if not a little bit below freezing, particularly in rural spots, that brings the risk of some frost and also some icy patches. The icy patches are going to be more of an issue across parts of northern Scotland where the showers are more frequent, and worth bearing in mind these showers could bring some sleet or snow, particularly over any modest higher ground. Also some icy patches likely across parts of Northern Ireland too, especially towards the north where we have some showers feeding in. A few showers perhaps for northwest England and also around northern and western parts of Wales, but otherwise, once that rain in the southeast has cleared through, it is looking largely dry as we go through into tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, again, lots of fine weather on offer, plenty of sunshine, just a few showers to watch out for, particularly towards some northern and western coastal areas, but most places avoiding these. And yes, just a bit of cloud bubbling up through the afternoon, but generally a fine and often sunny picture. That being said, Temperatures around average for the time of year, so still a bit of a chilly feel to things. Later on, we will have a system coming in from the west that's going to push through overnight into Friday and lying across southeastern parts as we go through Friday itself. Behind that, though, a lot of dry weather following in, but it does look a bit cloudier than tomorrow, and so sunshine's going to be at a bit more of a premium. Into the weekend, and there will be a northwest-southeast split, with northwestern parts seeing most of the wet and windy weather.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Coming up, you will not believe why the woke FA has banned teenage girls from playing football. But first, the Church of England is facing a fresh storm tonight after a group of senior church leaders called on the Bishop of Liverpool to resign after allegations of sexual assault and harassment were made against him. One woman claimed that the Right Reverend John Parumbalath sexually assaulted her on several occasions between 2019 and 2023 in the Chelmsford diocese. Another woman is a female bishop in the Church of England. She alleged that she was also sexually harassed. Now, he was installed as the Bishop of Liverpool in April 2023, and this is where it gets really tricky for the Church, to be honest with you, because this is after the Church's national safeguarding team and the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, had been made aware of the allegations. The revelations, which I must say the Bishop of Liverpool denies, will heap pressure on Cottrell, the Bishop of York, who has been acting head of the Church since Welby stood down in disgrace at the start of this month. I'm joined now by the former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Dr. Gavin Ashenden. Great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, this is starting to look like a rotten institution, isn't it?
Well, I'm afraid it is. And although it's presenting itself to the public as an issue about sexual abuse, which it might or might not be, we don't know. As you say, the allegations, they haven't been proven. That's not the real problem. The real problem is the abuse of power. So the Bishop of Liverpool was put through a conduct inquiry rather than a safeguarding one, and that might sound technical, but there's a difference. The conduct one times out any complaints after 12 months. The safeguarding one doesn't. Somebody decided he'd be put through the one that timed it out. So when the complaint was made, they said it's timed out. This sounds like trickery, and one of the problems is that most of the clergy are saying that the bishops are holding themselves to a much different lax standard than they would be. So it's kind of two-tier safeguarding, and frankly, it looks a bit corrupt.
Well, it's just ridiculous. There's no, I don't think anyway, there's any other real walk of life where you would have someone, before you've employed them, if you want to class this as, oh, we've lost Gavin and it's made a terrible noise. Still making a terrible noise. Great. Well, it's an opportunity for me to read the quite lengthy right of replies that we've received, which will not shock you. By the way, I've got to say, it's not the first time that the Diocese of Liverpool has come under the cosh, because previously Previously, a failed asylum seeker blew himself up outside Liverpool Women's Maternity Hospital. And he had tried to convert to Christianity, and it opened the floodgates, and it suggested that that particular part of the country was quite ripe when it came to allowing asylum seekers to convert to Christianity when arguably they weren't themselves. I believe we might be able to bring in Gavin Ashenden again, hopefully without the terrible noise. Gavin, thank you very much. Right, so, yeah, look, in no other walk of life, really, would you have someone who's got this kind of allegation, true or not, hanging over them, and then you'd wave them through for the role? That, to me, does the church take this stuff seriously?
Well, it isn't taking it seriously, and that's why there are more calls on the Archbishop of York to resign. The trouble is there's been a sense of smugness about the senior management. The problem is it looks increasingly as though the senior management of the Church of England aren't fit for purpose. We don't know how many more of these events will come, but again, they don't seem to have realised that this isn't about sex, it's about corruption. It's about not holding people accountable and not being seen to hold them accountable. And then when people say, please do hold them accountable and change your practices, they double down and refuse. So I'm afraid I think it needs some kind of serious spring cleaning, but it's not fit for purpose as it is.
And there are issues, of course, when it comes to the Bishop of York himself at the moment, isn't it? The Archbishop of York, who's currently the acting head of the Church of England in the wake of the Welby furore. He's not always covered himself in glory, allegedly, in the past, has he? And is he in some way responsible for this? Because if so, it looks like, actually, hang on a minute, maybe it's not just Welby who should have gone.
No, it isn't, and a lot of people are saying Cottrell should go too. He is responsible. He claims he can't resign because the Church of England will collapse without him. But the problems you've described aren't alleged at all. He had a sex abuser in his diocese in the job before, and instead of holding him to account, which he should have done, he promoted him twice. And so his judgment is really proved to be really less than competent for the job, and he should resign.
I think I'll take your point, don't get me wrong. I think he might claim he didn't know, but I think in this particular moment in British history right now, where we are, it is absolutely vital that we have a strong Church of England that does things by the book, that doesn't end up getting embroiled in ridiculous stuff like this, and that behaves itself. Because we all talk very regularly, especially on this show, about certain issues when it comes to multiculturalism and diversity and mass immigration from other cultures. And we need to have some roots in this country, and at the moment it's very difficult to take those roots seriously. Gavin, thank you very much. Sorry we lost you for a moment there, but we'll see you again soon, no doubt. Dr. Gavin Ashenden there, former chaplain to the late Queen Elizabeth II. In response to the allegations, the Bishop of Liverpool has said, I have consistently denied these allegations made against me by both complainants. I've complied with any investigation from the National Safeguarding Team. The allegations raised in Essex were also investigated by police, who took no further action. While I don't believe I've done anything wrong, I've taken seriously the lessons learned through this process, addressing how my actions can be perceived by others, and I will comply with any investigation deemed necessary. Now we've got a spokesperson for the Church of England, and Stephen Cottrell, who says the complaint was looked into accordingly by statutory safeguarding guidance and an independent risk assessment undertaken. This process concluded that there were no ongoing safeguarding concerns, but a learning outcome was identified, which the Bishop fully engaged with. The complaint was also investigated by the police, which resulted in no further action. Cottrell has supported the complainant pastorally through the process and continues to offer practical help. Coming up at 10 p.m.
It shows you just how out of touch His Majesty's Treasury are with reality.
Safe to say the Chancellor's plan for growth failed to convince the straight-talking boss of Ryanair. Oh, and her decision to back a third Heathrow runway has meant she's now at the throat of another Labour cabinet minister. Which one will survive? But first, the Football Association have handed a teenage girl a 6-match ban. Can you guess what her crime is? I'll reveal all next.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
According to a report from the RAC, many drivers see speed limits as a target rather than anything else. More than 50% of us think it's acceptable to break the speed limit.
So this morning we're asking, is it time to increase the motorway speed limit?
Let's talk to automotive journalists Danny Kelly and Steve Fowler. Gents, what a pleasure to speak to you both in one go.
I think we should join many countries in the European Union that have 130 kilometres speed limit, which is around about 80, 81 miles an hour. I drive to London on a weekly basis, and I think the roads are capable of handling higher speeds. I think unofficially the speed limit, without getting pulled over by the local police at the time, is probably around about 78, 80 miles an hour. If a Bobby's on the motorway doing 70 miles an hour, he wants you to overtake him. He wants the free-flowing of that motorway to continue.
So should we change 70 miles an hour? You know, if people are going 80 miles an hour, just stick to 70 miles an hour as a limit. Yes, you know, it's funny when you're driving along the motorway and there's a police car going at 70 and nobody wants to overtake. But if the average is 80, just leave it at 70.
All the gantries now are fitted with the modern signage where they can change the limit at will. We all know that. It's hard to get up to 70 half the time. So, actually, we could apply those rules, couldn't we, at 80 or even 90 miles an hour and say, well, if the weather's bad, let's reduce it. If the fog's bad, let's reduce it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I hate to use this phrase, smart motorways, but they're the ones where you have the adjustable limits. They don't cover all of the motorway network, relatively small amount of the motorway network. It is a limit. You know, it's not a target, as I keep saying to my kids. God, they're bored of me saying that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Very shortly, I'm going to reveal which two Labour cabinet ministers are at each other's throats this evening. But first, football's governing body, the FA, has banned a teenage female footballer for 6 matches after she asked a referee if a trans opponent was a man. So the 18-year-old, who reportedly has ADHD and learning difficulties, said, quote, "Ref, have you checked if all of their players are eligible to play? Look at their keeper. And, for example, their number 10 is obviously a man." So she questioned the opponent's gender, right, and their aggressive style of play. And this isn't the first time the FA has been embroiled in a trans row. Just 3 months ago, a 17-year-old with suspected autism was handed a suspension for asking a trans opponent if they were a man, which, by the way, again, yes, they are. The answer to all of these questions is yes, they're a bloke. Football Association rules allow biological men to play in women's matches, believe it or not. I'm joined now by the Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, Fiona McInerney. Thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Look, first things first, how can it be fair that a biological woman, especially one with apparent learning difficulties anyway, gets banned for pointing out that there's a bloke playing up front for the other team?
I can't see how that can be fair. It's a women's league. They're women's football teams. No one expects to run out onto the field and see a bloke. And if they do, it seems completely reasonable to say, is that a man? And that's what happened. And now she can never say that again because she knows that she'll be suspended if she does. I mean, the irony is that if she said that to a woman, that would be, people would laugh it off and they'd move on and play the game. But because these people really are men claiming to be women, then the FA deems that to be gross misconduct.
But it's also coming from a place of safety. I mean, look, at its core level, it presumably might give the striker or goalkeeper, whoever it is, an unfair advantage in terms of size and strength, and maybe that would cause that team to lose the game. So there's that. But there is also just the safety aspect, isn't there? And if you're asking now, the FA appears to be asking young girls to ignore the fact that they might get hurt.
Yeah, they're putting them in a position where they're not allowed to speak up in defence of their own safety. Football's a very physical game. It's a full contact game. The difference between men and women in strength, particularly upper body strength, in speed and power is very significant. And these girls now, and all of her teammates, of course, know too, that if they see male players in the opposition, they have to keep quiet. You know, and I've talked to other women who've had to play trans players in the past, and they say you end end up, you just don't even tackle because if you go in for a tackle, you just get shouldered off the ball, you land on the ground. If you get injured, that's you out. So they end up not able to play at all. Some women have said to me, the game ends up being a farce.
Yeah, there was a story that I covered about a year or so ago. A girl had her leg broken, for goodness sake, by a man who was playing in the other team. I worry about the direction of travel with this because we are seeing more people identifying as women. And if they realise that they can do this and get away with it, what is the future like in 10 years' time? We've got women's football leagues just full of men and the odd woman.
Yeah, I mean, just when it's starting to be financially viable for women to make a living playing football, the same is true in cricket. Which is mostly a self-ID model, which means that you don't even have to lower testosterone if you're a man. You don't even have to say you have. You just turn up, say you're a woman. So the other problem is that football is going to get worse because the big three sports in this country, swimming, cycling, athletics, where most people participate, they've all changed their rules. They've said, this isn't fair. We have a women's category so that female people can excel at sport and win. And letting male people into that, doesn't matter how they identify, it's just not fair. So that means that football is going to get all those guys. It's the next biggest sport that has not yet... reinstated a female category.
Well, where's Gary Lineker on this? You know, he's very vocal about some other causes out there, isn't he? And he's got a right to be when he's not employed by the BBC, of course. He pipes up about Gaza every now and again. He talks about being all virtuous and all of this stuff. Sorry, Gary, what about the rights of young girls to go and play? I mean, would you like to see him pipe up about this, do you think?
I'd love to hear what Gary Lineker has to say about this. People keep asking him when he puts a call out saying what should he cover on his podcast, but somehow this never gets to the top of his list.
Yeah, I find it absolutely astonishing. I mean, the FA should hang their heads in shame when it comes to this stuff. But the other aspect to it is we've spoken a lot about what goes on the pitch there. Well, it's the changing rooms as well. And where would this end for the FA? So if that particular young lady in question had said what she'd said, but to a referee and said, look, I'm in a shared changing room here and there's a man in my changing room, so it's not nothing to do with football necessarily, would she still have then got a 6-match ban for not wanting to shower with a man?
Yeah, I think if that man was someone who claimed to be a woman and was, registered with the FA to play in the women's game, then I think she would be severely punished for that. And of course, what people often don't realise is there's nothing to tell you when someone who looks like a man claims to be a woman or identifies as a woman. He still looks like a man to most of us.
Yeah.
You know, they've not necessarily changed anything about themselves. And so why is it reasonable to expect a teenage girl to share changing rooms with someone like that? But right now, the way the FA rules are, she's the one who's in trouble if she objects.
That's just absolutely bonkers, isn't it? The lengths that people will go to jump through hoops for, well, people who, in my view, are cheating and who are knowingly cheating. I don't see why you would want... Because you could play in a men's league. If you are a man, you could go and play in a men's league. And I don't care what anyone says, you wouldn't get a load of stick. I mean, people rock up on a Sunday morning on Hackney Marshes or whatever. There's all sorts of different people there. No one's getting, So there's not a barrier to that trans person going and playing in a men's football team. There isn't. I think the idea that you go and play in a women's team is, in my view, because you want to cheat, or you've maybe you do enjoy the changing rooms a bit too much. I don't know, but look, thank you very much anyway. We're run out of time, but it's great to have you on the show. It's Fiona McKenna there, who is the director of campaigns at Sex Matters. An FA spokesperson has said the case was heard by an independent national serious case panel in November 2024. They issued a sanction for a breach of FA rules. The charges were immediately accepted by the player and the outcome was the minimum sanction that could have been issued for the case of this nature. The player did not appeal the sanction. We regularly review our processes. So there we go. Coming up at 10 p.m.
Probably shows you just how out of touch His Majesty's Treasury are with reality.
Yeah, well, very shortly I'm going to reveal which two Labour cabinet ministers are now at war with each other. Only one can survive. Stay tuned.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. I'm here with your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. It's going to be a bit chilly for many of us overnight, and with that, there is the risk of some icy patches developing, especially towards the north. Meanwhile, further south, we're still under the influence of an area of low pressure, which is just off the coast of France, but it is bringing some heavy rain to immediate southern coastal parts, particularly towards the southeast. A lot of that is clearing away, though, as we go overnight, and so for many, it's going to be a dry picture with some clear skies, but worth noting across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular, we are going to have some showers feeding in from the north, and with temperatures falling close to, if not a little bit below freezing, particularly in rural spots, that brings the risk of some frost and also some icy patches. The icy patches are going to be more of an issue across parts of northern Scotland, where the showers are more frequent, and worth bearing in mind these showers could bring some sleet or snow, particularly over any modest higher ground. Also some icy patches likely across parts of Northern Ireland too, especially towards the north, where we have some showers feeding in. A few showers perhaps for northwest England and also around northern and western parts of Wales, but otherwise, once that rain in the southeast has cleared through, it is looking largely dry as we go through into tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, again, lots of fine weather on offer, plenty of sunshine, just a few showers to watch out for, particularly towards some northern and western coastal areas, but most places avoiding these. And yes, just a bit of cloud bubbling up through the afternoon, but generally a fine and often sunny picture. That being said, temperatures around average for the time of year, so still a bit of a chilly feel to things. Later on, we will have a system coming in from the west that's going to push through overnight into Friday and lying across southeastern parts as we go through Friday itself. Behind that, though, a lot of dry weather following in, but it does look a bit cloudier than tomorrow, and so sunshine's going to be at a bit more of a premium. Into the weekend, and there will be a northwest-southeast split, with northwestern parts seeing most of the wet and windy weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Don't miss out as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. As Shia Muslims take over Westminster Bridge, I ask, is that intimidating? And Rachel Reeves went for growth.
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government.
But it's fair to say not everyone was happy.
Probably shows you just how out of touch Her Majesty's Treasury are with reality.
Meanwhile, over in America...
If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal.
They are still deporting illegals, whereas over here, that Sudanese asylum seeker is a serial sex attacker, and we are refusing to deport him. Also,
and individually, we are strengthened by sharing perspectives. We recognise today that our diversity is our greatest strength.
well, I hate to ask this, but is our king too woke? He apparently demanded a submarine be renamed so it didn't offend the French. Plus, some breaking news tonight. You're paying for new clothes and shoes for illegal migrants to the tune of £3,000 every single day. And do you remember that guy who called Trump a massive fascist? Yeah, here he is now.
I consider my remarks about President Trump as ill-judged and wrong.
Toe curling, isn't it? And have you ever wondered what being on magic mushrooms feels like? On my panel tonight is Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Oh, and can you tell me, please, what happens next here with this state-of-the-art fighter jet? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. I'll reveal which two Labour cabinet ministers are at each other's throats tonight. Next.
Patrick, thank you. The top stories. The Chancellor has backed the expansion of Heathrow Airport in a speech outlining her plans to boost economic growth. Rachel Reeves claims a new runway will connect the UK to the world and open up new opportunities, including creating 100,000 jobs. But the London Mayor Sadiq Khan says he can't support those plans. This evening, he has said it would damage our environment and place huge demand on our transport infrastructure. The Prime Minister was challenged over the government's plans for growth at Prime Minister's Questions. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch mainly focused on the Employment Rights Bill. She repeatedly asked if it would be dropped because it fails, she said, fails his test for delivering growth, She also accused the Keir Starmer of misleading the House.
It is business that creates growth. Our economy is built by entrepreneurs, risk takers, and the hard graft of working people. They know that you can't tax your way to growth. You can't borrow your way to growth. You can't legislate your way to growth. Other countries are serious about freeing business from red tape. President Trump is doing it in America. Argentina is taking a chainsaw to regulations. Even the EU is not going as far as this left-wing government. This bill will put us at the bottom of the pack. Add it to the jobs tax, the family business tax. It's no wonder wealth creators are fleeing Britain in droves.
While the Prime Minister, in reference to Liz Truss, warned Ms Badenoch that she'd become the next lettuce, claiming the Conservatives left the economy in a mess.
Mr Speaker, I understand she likes straight talking. She's talking absolute nonsense. She knows, and anybody who understands anything about the bill or any employment law will know you can't start in the morning and go to the tribunal in the afternoon. Now, Mr Speaker, we know she's not a lawyer. She's clearly not a leader. If she keeps on like this, she is going to be the next lettuce.
And Donald Trump has signed the Laken Riley Act, the first legislation to get his signature since his return to the White House. The bill is named after a Georgia nursing student who was murdered last year by a Venezuelan man. It requires the detention of unauthorized immigrants accused of theft and violent crimes.
Under the law I'm signing today, the Department of Homeland Security will be required to detain all illegal aliens who have been arrested for theft, burglary, larceny, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, murder, or any crime that results in death or serious injury. In addition, for the first time ever, this act gives state governments the ability to sue the federal government for immediate injunctive relief if any future administration ever again refuses to enforce the immigration laws of the United States.
Those are the latest headlines for now. It's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. It's another massive U-turn from Chancellor Rachel Reeves, and now she is at war with Ed Miliband. Remember when she told the Bank of England to treat climate change as the same priority level as economic growth? Well, now it's all about a third runway at Heathrow.
I have always been clear that a third runway at Heathrow would unlock further growth, boost investment, increase exports, and make the UK more open and more connected. So I can confirm today that this government supports a third runway at Heathrow and is inviting proposals to be brought forward by the summer.
That's interesting because Keir Starmer is, as you can see, on record opposing it and actually congratulating climate campaigners who wanted to block it. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has come out and said that he's opposing it because of noise and pollution. Now, unfortunately for Sadiq, there is another solution to the so-called climate crisis. 1 in 12 people in London are here illegally, so if we deported them, think about how much less CO2 there'd be in the capital. Dale Vince, the former Just Stop Oil donor turned Labour Party donor, has come out against it. But the big one, and this is the story, is Ed Miliband. Rachel Reeves has gone to war with climate lunatic Ed Miliband, and only one of them can survive. Miliband is bullish, saying the expansion of Heathrow won't go ahead if it doesn't meet climate targets. He didn't turn up to Reeves's growth speech. He didn't turn up to Prime Minister's questions, apparently. Where is he? Well, in 2009, Ed Miliband threatened to resign if a Heathrow expansion went ahead. Surely now he's got to go then, hasn't he? Earlier this week, it emerged that man of the people, Red Ed, has employed a taxpayer-funded vanity photographer to follow him around and make him look good. Well, GBNews has just come into possession of a leaked photo that very photographer took the moment he found out about Reeves backing the airport expansion. Oh, look at him. He's gutted, isn't he? Absolutely fuming. Oh, hang on. What's that? Sorry. Wait. We've got some breaking news for you right now. Breaking news. I'm hearing that we've managed to track down Ed Miliband this evening, and he's at a meeting with Sadiq Khan and Dale Vince. Should we drop in on them? Oh, just crying away, aren't they? So sad. Oh, would you look at that? They are gutted, bless them. Absolutely gutted. The fact is, at some point, Keir Starmer is going to have to choose between Rachel from Accounts and Red Ed, the wind farm hugger. I think that Ed will probably be the one to go. He's embroiled in a bit of an alleged scandal when it comes to Dale Vince donating to the Labour Party and then mysteriously being offered a contract to build a massive solar farm. That is a classic example of, if the Tories did it, Paul Brand from ITV wouldn't have shut up about it, would he? According to Dale Vince, there's absolutely nothing to see here.
This solar farm was submitted under the Conservative government about 3 years ago and went through the independent process, the planning process that's run, that reports to DESNZ. Ed Miliband simply became the new Minister for DESNZ, reported to by this body. There were no objections to this project and it was approved by the inspectorate. And it was Ed Miliband's job either to agree with that or not to agree with that. But I've never spoken to him about it. And so there's actually no connection. But what you've just raised is a perfect example of why we should publicly fund our political parties and our elections.
Great haircut, isn't it? Miliband's bet the house on GB Energy. Well, should we just check in on how it's going? Oh, it isn't. Nobody really knows what it is. They say that they want to decarbonise the power sector by 2030, which is 5 years away, and it appears they haven't even appointed a HR officer. Yeah, they're advertising for one online. We are looking for a senior HR professional. There we go. On their board of non-executive directors is 2 ex-Transport for London executives and Tessa O'Grady, the former head of the Trade Union Congress. One of them used to work at Crossrail, a project that came in late and billions of pounds over budget. I mean, is GB Energy just a care home for trots? I'll tell you what, though, listening to her voice.
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government. Without growth, we cannot cut hospital waiting lists or put more police on the streets. Without growth, we cannot meet our climate goals or give the next generation the opportunities that they need to thrive.
So wooden birds are nesting in it. It makes you want to run your nails down a chalkboard for a bit of respite, doesn't it? She wants growth, but listen to this critique by Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary.
I get a letter back this week from some dopey junior minister, James Murray, who's the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. Probably shows you just how out of touch Her Majesty's Treasury are with reality. If Rachel Rubbish is serious about delivering growth, abolish aviation tax.
Hello? Yeah, is that the police? Yeah, I'd just like to report a murder, please. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, hopefully they'll get to that in about 3 years' time. Rachel Reeves couldn't grow a plant, let alone our economy, and now the Labour cabinet is at war. They're dumb. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Mark, Reeves or Miliband, who wins, who survives? Only one of them, surely.
I wonder whether I should place a bet with you, Patrick. I think Ed Miliband's more likely to prevail here than Rachel Reeves, actually. I mean, I would be willing on Rachel Reeves. I mean, it's a bit of a choice between a rock and a hard place. But despite her appalling delivery, it looks like the scales may have fallen from her eyes. They haven't yet worked out what trade-offs they faced her. You've basically got to choose between growth and carbon net zero. The idea that you can merge the two together is absolutely fanciful. So it might be that one of them wins, one of them loses. They might just ground into a stalemate where they sort of pretend they're going to go ahead with Heathrow expansion or other airport, but it never really happens. But, you know, why have they changed their mind on all of this? The facts around Heathrow haven't changed in recent years. I mean, for crying out loud, we haven't increased runway capacity in any airport in London or the South East since 1945.
It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely absurd. Yeah. So you've got to really choose whether you want, as a strategy, this green carbon net zero path. If you do, don't expect economic growth, or whether you're going to abandon that and go a build path. But you can't really have half of each.
We now have, it's finally happening. It's a little bit like how one day the trans lobby will meet the pro-Palestinians and there'll be some kind of epic battle royale. But this is what's happening now when it comes to net zero and economic growth, right? And it's happening. It's playing out before our eyes. Can I just give you an early citer, by the way, of the front of the Daily Telegraph? Heathrow will not be ready until 2050. So, despite what Rachel Reeves might say, we've got 25 years. Is that right? Yeah, 25 years. My maths is great. To get this off the ground. Badly, look, who's going to win this? Miliband
as well, this was first tabled in 2002. So that was 23 years ago they first proposed to do this, and it might not be built till 2050. This country is a joke. Can you imagine China going through this? Yeah. They build power stations in like 6 months. We are a joke, and net zero for me is a joke, a dangerous joke as well. It's on unproven science, it's on modelling, and we see how modelling went during COVID. We are risking our future of blackouts, we are risking being skint for a gamble on what climate could do. The choice between Ed Miliband and Rachel Reeves for me is like two rotting teeth. What one do you pull out first? I would say that Ed Miliband, hopefully he goes first, because we might be able to undo the wasted billions that he's promising everyone. He
threatened to resign in, I think it was 2008 or 2009. He threatened to resign over this same issue, and he's here again in a very similar position. Surely he has to do the honourable thing, Nina, doesn't he, and fall on his sword again?
That was 16 years ago and a very different life, and a lot can happen and people can change their minds, and you shouldn't be held responsible for something you said 16 years ago. Having said that, I think that Ed Miliband and the fact that he is such a
fanatic,
an enthusiast,
an extremist.
Or enthusiast.
So he's so enthusiastic, and the fact that he is in the cabinet is a very healthy sign. You need to have all kinds of views in a cabinet, and the very fact that Rachel Reeves has one view and Keir Starmer agrees with her, they are the power team in that cabinet, obviously. But you say you can only have one. You can't have both. You can have both. If you're looking at ways of offsetting, you look at the fuel, aviation fuel, green aviation fuel. That by the time the third runway comes, that will be something that will be a very potent thing. But listen. What I take issue with is Adam saying that the science is dodgy. Do you not believe in climate change?
I don't believe in it, the way they push it on us, and it is all on modelling. It doesn't matter what you say. COVID modelling was completely...
Never mind COVID.
What I'd quite like to drag us back to is the major issue, if you don't mind, sorry, is the major issue at play here, which is the internal war in the Labour Party.
And I think it's considerably... I don't think you can have this diversity of opinions around the cabinet table and expect a coherent strategy.
Agreed.
So it's not not just carbon net zero. You've got the Department for Culture, Media and Sport wanting to regulate football, probably our most successful industry over the past 20 years. Well, that's an anti-growth strategy. You've got Angela Rayner wanting to bring in, which we saw Kemi Badenoch at Prime Minister's Questions, whole bunch of red tape on employing people. You might be in favour of that for fairness of work, but that's an anti-growth strategy. So you've got Rachel Reeves around the table saying she apparently wants to deregulate, build things, get on with it, increase infrastructure, and virtually everybody else pursuing a strategy that isn't aligned with economic growth.
But we can have this farcical situation, conceivably, where the Labour Mayor of London and the Labour Net Zero Minister, Ed Miliband, are lying down in front of the bulldozers at Heathrow while Rachel Reeves tries to drive it over the top of it.
That's the next 25 years. That's one thing with Sadiq Khan. Like, him and his C40 Cities group, they are a dangerous climate extremist group that work with Michael Bloomberg. They basically want to phase out flying in the next 20 or 30 years. So I'm pleased that maybe people with a bit of sense in the Labour Party are putting this country before this net zero nuttiness.
Okay.
So it's a good thing.
It's
I
not
would rather
net zero nuttiness. It is not. You have to look at California. Look what's just happened there.
There's nothing to do with climate change.
Oh, you say I think you'll find that most scientists who know more about it disagree with you.
The scientists that are paid by the people with a lot of money might agree with it. Yes,
it's not just the science. The issue is
it is the science.
It's not.
It is the science.
Even if you think
you're a climate denier, how can you be that?
Even if no, it's not. You don't need to.
They were wrong in COVID.
No, they weren't wrong in COVID.
You don't need to be a climate denier. You can be sceptical about how much salvation it will bring to the world if the UK gets to carbon net zero. We are 0.8% of all global carbon emissions. If you could just click your fingers now for free and make that 0%, it wouldn't make much difference.
It would make. Yes, go for it.
Can I ask you? Do you think if look, Keir Starmer needs a win, right? He needs a bump in the polls.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that maybe it's quite an easy win for him to get rid of Ed Miliband, who a lot of people do think is a little bit of a fanatic. You would describe it as enthusiastic, fine, but he's got this real ideological push for net zero, despite the cost. It doesn't matter what the cost. He could sideline him, I think, and actually he might get a bump in the polls.
There's no question of sidelining him. They take all his opinions, take all those things, and then do what you want anyway. You have to drive through, and that doesn't mean that he is out on his ear or there's something that he somehow failed. He's part of that team. As I said, it's a healthy debate to have all viewpoints, and it's not healthy for you to say.
It's my opinion, Nina. No disrespect. China are building gas power stations by the minute. America is now fracking, and
building more wind farms than anyone else in the world.
Affect the climate.
We cannot then tell China or India or the States that they need to reduce their carbon emissions, because we wouldn't have a leg to stand on. We need to lead the way.
We've done more for our carbon emissions than any other country, I believe, in the world since 1995.
And that's about the only thing we can lead on in this day and age.
The government is going to continually be divided about this.
Yeah.
This is the new dividing line for the Labour government, and I don't think they can resolve it whether Reeves or Miliband comes out on top.
Reeves and Starmer will win.
Well, I agree with you on that, but purely because that axis between Chancellor and Prime Minister. But might be right. I don't know. But Miliband can't hide forever. I mean, he wasn't at this growth things, and I don't think he was at PMQs either. I mean,
He's not always. They're not all always there.
They're there. But you would expect.
He's definitely run for cover.
Maybe he'd get his guitar and do a silly song and post it on the internet in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a ukulele.
Don't.
It's a ukulele.
Sorry.
You need to have extreme views so that you can meet in the middle.
Not around the cabinet table.
It's a lovely way of putting it.
Not around the cabinet.
It's a lovely way of putting it. I think at this point as well, I have to say something along the lines of I think Sadiq Khan would deny that he's an extremist when it comes to the climate. Let's clarify that. Anyway, Took myself an even bigger hole there. Time is running out to win £50,000 of tax-free cash. Make sure you don't miss out.
There's just 2 days left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
It's such a nice feeling.
Just go for it.
It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win.
I was on cloud 9.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Don't miss out as lines close on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, I'll bring you all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Oh, and have you ever wondered what magic mushrooms feels like? But first, I'll reveal exactly how much you, the British taxpayer, are shelling out every single day for brand new clothes and shoes for illegal immigrants. It's jaw-dropping. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
We've got the Daily Mail now with the latest in the court case over whether a man is a woman or a man. It's a tough question. And J.K. Rowling has given her opinion. I think I can guess what it is, Cressida.
Explosive twist in Australia's What is a Woman trans battle as Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling gets involved. So this is the court case Giggle versus Tickle. Tickle was a...
He's Mr. Men.
That's right. It's a Mr. Men trans battle.
Kind of is a Mr. Man.
It was a women's group, wasn't it? Tickle, Giggles... Oh, I get it wrong. Giggles for girls. And Roxy Tickle, who is a trans woman, wanted to join this group and wasn't allowed, was banned for being a biological male, and then sued and amazingly got $10,000 for this, which is already extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
But it's now doubling down and is going to file a cross appeal seeking to upgrade the judgment.
Yeah.
So Roxy has come back for another bite of the cherry.
And I've had a look at this Roxanne Tickle, the trans woman.
Is she pretty?
No, not one of the pretty ones. Not a Blair White. Just looks like, to be honest, it looks like
you could be sued for $10,000.
Looks like one of us.
Yeah.
To be honest, no. Like I mean, I'll happily.
For yourself.
No, I think it's an absolute. It's a farce, and it's making a mockery of not just. It's not just making a mockery of women's right to have their own spaces. It's making a mockery of genuine trans people who actually put some effort in and look like a woman.
What do you mean a genuine trans?
And also,
people?
If
we don't believe in that.
If your name was Roxanne, if you were going to transition, you wouldn't pick the name Roxanne Tickle.
What?
You choose Tess.
You Tess. That's a bit kind of name. No, the truth is that's one of the problems, is you get a choice of the name you're going to choose. And of course, you're going to choose like a hot Roxanne. That's a hot Roxanne. That's a great name. They're not going to choose.
You don't think
Louis.
Tess would work better with Tickle?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Still to come, I've got the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But first, in yet another affront to hard-working British taxpayers, it's emerged tonight that the government is shelling out £3,000 every single day in new clothes and shoes for illegal migrants. Puffer coats, hats, gloves, flip-flops, you name it, they're handed over at Dover. It's like a Primark, isn't it? At a total cost of almost £4 million over 3 years. And it gets worse. The Home Office says the cost is justified. Officials claim stocking all the different clothing items and shoes in a storehouse said to be as big as a Matalan is necessary to replace illegal immigrants' clothing, which may have been soaked by the seawater. Joining me now is Research Director for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Robert, thank you very, very much. I mean, honestly, we've got Brits in this country who can't afford to put clothes on their own backs, but you can come across the channel and we'll put you in the latest clobber.
I think this is incredibly insulting to the British taxpayer. Let's be clear, the overall asylum bill that we're being saddled with at the moment is about £6 billion. Some estimates suggest it actually goes up to about 15 billion.
Year?
A year,
right.
A year, 15 billion a year. And these are, incredibly tough times at the moment. The cost of living crisis, people are still struggling with energy prices. We've got a real homelessness crisis amongst Brits ourselves, especially amongst the veterans. We've got, people on waiting lists for social housing. But yet we always seem to be at the back of the queue. People always seem to be prioritised if they've come into our country illegally. I think it reeks of an establishment that simply don't have their priorities right. They're more concerned with appealing to ECHR, foreign courts, these arcane kind of ideas at an international level, rather than actually doing what's in the national interest and, more importantly, in the interest of the British public. And I think we're being grossly let down.
It doesn't even include phones, by the way,
Well, no, it's phones, it's, and then you've got the bikes, and you've also got a whole charity industry as well that's emerged about this as well, getting massive grants, and they're kind of distributing exclusive kind of goodies and things like that to these individuals, rather than actually focusing on the much bigger problem, which is British homelessness and British deprivation. So I think it comes at a time when people are really struggling, and I think it's incredibly insulting. Stories like this really, really hammer home to me.
What would you do, though, just putting the other side of this up? I mean, if someone does arrive in Britain with the clothes on their back and their clothes are soaking, I mean, what would you do, realistically?
Well, I'd take that £3,000 and I would spend it on a plane ticket to the country that they've originally come from, or from a third country such as Rwanda. I don't think we need to really pussyfoot around the conversation. These people are coming into our country illegally. They have no right to be here, and the fact that we're entertaining them with such largesse is ridiculous.
So we've been speaking there about illegal immigrants, but let's knock it on now to legal migrants, because GB News can reveal tonight that dependents of migrants who entered the country since 2021, this is the so-called Boris wave, I think, isn't it, will cost you, the taxpayer, 35 billion quid by 2028. So the decision to allow skilled workers to bring their dependents with them is going to cost all of us tens of billions of pounds. Why are we letting this happen?
It's disgraceful. We're having to let it happen because in 2021 we took back control of our borders from the European Union, and the people in control of shaping our post-Brexit immigration system, Boris Johnson and Priti Patel, didn't do any of the necessary legwork. They didn't think about the immigration system at all. They just got pushed from pillar to post by quangos such as the Migration Advisory Committee. They were lobbied extensively by industry, and they were told what to do. They were warned very clearly that by allowing these huge numbers of migrants that were going to be coming in over the skilled worker and the health and social care visa routes to bring dependents, that there would be huge costs.
But those dependents, this is the other thing to it I don't quite get, is that, like, why are so clearly so many of these dependents reluctant to get off the backsides and get a job themselves? And this is the other thing that I don't quite understand. When you do see a lot of these workers, and you just see this in your day-to-day life, so anyone out there, I challenge anyone to dispute this, anecdotally, when you go to Tesco's, you have a look at who some of the security guards are, or see some of the people who work behind the counter, they're obviously not on big money, but they clearly are here on some kind of visa. Well, they can't support their entire families on on that, can they? I don't quite understand how this is happening. They're obviously getting money from somewhere. Is it all the taxpayer? Why are we letting this happen?
Well, and that's why we've got such a big problem at the moment with foreign nationals claiming benefits. There's about 1.6 million people in the country that are either unemployed or economically inactive that are a foreign national and simply refusing to work. Of those dependents that arrived in the country between 2021 and 2024, over half of them simply didn't go out and look for work. They haven't bothered to kind of roll their sleeves up, get stuck in and start contributing to the economy. And the fact of the matter is that we have pursued an immigration policy for far too long that isn't about the greater good of this country. It's about serving the interests of those businesses that are loudest, those businesses that have ministers' ears. The care sector is a perfect example of that. They've been incredibly effective at lobbying ministers and telling them exactly what they need in terms of labour, and have been able to shirk the obligations to the British workforce, investing in them, training them, but also shirking their obligations to start investing and starting to innovate and look to automate a lot of the functions that they're having to do in their sector. And that's exactly what, sadly, the Conservative ministers from 2021 to 2024 allow them to get away with.
I mean, this is a cross-party thing. I mean, you rightly identified it. This isn't just, having a go at Labour. It's also saying the Tories are ultimately responsible. I mean, literally responsible in the case of what we're talking about there, things that started in 2021. I will just say there was something that was released earlier on. Martin Daubney did this on his show earlier, and it was based on some new stats that were released, which appeared to suggest that non-white Brits were twice as likely to be on benefits. So people might dispute that, OK, but does that indicate that maybe there's a slight cultural thing here?
I think it does. So first of all, we need to recognise that British citizenship is being handed out to an extent it's never been handed out before to recently arrived migrants, those that have been in the country. You can get it from about 5 years. There are cases of people getting it after 5 years. So that will definitely be playing on those factors as well. But I think you're right that there's a bigger integration issue. I think we are seeing increasingly in our large towns and cities that these communities from South Asia, from Africa, are tending to congregate within themselves. They're tending to siphon themselves off from the rest of society, and they're tending to perpetuate practices, cultural norms, how they arrange the household that more reflects what was expected in their home country rather than the kind of ethos we have here where it's, husband and wife both go out to work, chip in. And I think that's a large reason why we're seeing people quite not making ends meet and having to rely on the state a bit more, is because they have those kind of expectations that the man goes to work, the mother stays at home, and therefore there's a clear deficit in the household.
No, I will just follow up with that by saying we also, as we also regularly talk about on this show, we have too many Brits, white Brits, whatever you want to call them, unemployed as well, on the sick, claiming benefits. 55% of households in this country are taking more in benefits than they are paying into the state. It's not simply just a cultural thing, but there maybe is an indication that a bit of it is. Thank you very much. Well, great to have you on the show. Fantastic stuff. Right, coming up, very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. They have landed, and I'll bring them to you next. Oh, and, well, hey, look, Nigel Farage, bless him, was accosted by a dragon today. All that and much more, including what happens to a state-of-the-art fighter jet that appeared to plunge out the sky. Stay tuned.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow and across southern parts of Europe, there's quite a mixed picture. There is still some rain and even a bit of hill snow around, especially across northern parts of Spain into southern France. Elsewhere across Spain and Portugal, it's actually a bit drier and brighter than it has been recently, and similar across much of Italy for now, although there is some rain around and rain affecting Greece as well. There will be some further dry, bright weather to come as we go through into the weekend, with temperatures around or a touch above average for the time of year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. I'm here with your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. It's going to be a bit chilly for many of us overnight, and with that there is the risk of some icy patches developing, especially towards the north. Meanwhile, further south, we're still under the influence of an area of low pressure which is just off the coast of France, but it is bringing some heavy rain to immediate southern coastal parts, particularly towards the southeast. A lot of that is clearing away though as we go overnight, and so for many it's going to be a dry picture with some clear skies, but worth noting dominating across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular, we are going to have some showers feeding in from the north. And with temperatures falling close to, if not a little bit below freezing, particularly in rural spots, that brings the risk of some frost and also some icy patches. The icy patches are going to be more of an issue across parts of northern Scotland, where the showers are more frequent. And worth bearing in mind, these showers could bring some sleet or snow, particularly over any modest higher ground. Also some icy patches likely across parts of Northern Ireland too, especially towards the north, where we have some showers feeding in. A few showers perhaps for northwest England and also around northern and western parts of Wales, but otherwise, once that rain in the southeast has cleared through, it is looking largely dry as we go through into tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, again, lots of fine weather on offer, plenty of sunshine, just a few showers to watch out for, particularly towards some northern and western coastal areas, but most places avoiding these. And yes, just a bit of cloud bubbling up through the afternoon, but generally a fine and often sunny picture. That being said, temperatures around average for the time of year, so still a bit of a chilly feel to things. Later on, we will have a system coming in from the west that's going to push through overnight into Friday and lying across southeastern parts as we go through Friday itself. Behind that, though, a lot of dry weather following in, but it does look a bit cloudier than tomorrow, and so sunshine's going to be at a bit more of a premium. Into the weekend, and there will be a northwest-southeast split, with northwestern parts seeing most of the wet and windy weather.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. OK, let's do the front pages. So it's the Daily Telegraph leading us in. Heathrow will not be ready until 2050. They also go off the story we've just covered, £3,000 a day cost to give migrants basically clothes and shoes. So The Guardian, Chancellor's Heathrow expansion plans hit turbulence over climate. That's the war between her and Ed Miliband and Sadiq Khan. Children join school unable to use books. Some children are starting primary school unable to climb a staircase, while others use Americanisms because they're spending too much time on screens. Well, I mean, that's a problem with the parents, isn't it? So there we go. The Metro, it's boom or bust. Chancellor's plan for rapid growth. I was slightly undermined, I will say, by the fact that she didn't rule out tax rises in the spring, but anyway. The Independent, Reeves' Heathrow plan to turbocharge economy struggles to take off. Oh, it's bad if you've got the Independent against you as well. The I paper, Reeves backs bigger airports, new rail line and towns as she reveals growth plan. Kickstart economic growth is on the plinth in front of Rachel Reeves. The Daily Mail, well, they've got the Bridget Jones premiere, haven't they? I must say, Emily was very pleased about this. There's a new Bridget Jones movie out.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. It's the premiere tonight.
Round the corner
she's
from me.
Pink like you, Nina. You're always lovely in pink, and
Thank
she's
you,
gone for
yes.
it as well.
Well, it's, all girls should wear pink if they want to.
And boys, let's not be sexist.
No, I'm not being sexist. I'm happy if you wear pink.
It's a happy thing. Let's not drag it into the gutter. Chancellor's Heathrow plan flies straight into turbulence. Yeah, look, you know what's dominating the front pages? It's Rachel Reeves. But on the Daily Star, you always trust them to take a different lead. And they've gone for Creepy McCreepface and a big picture of Mandelson. And on that note, we have got a video to play you now of... Everyone says that Peter Mandelson's a shapeshifter. He's like a chameleon, isn't he? Had to resign twice under Tony Blair. And back in 2019, he described Donald Trump as, quote, a danger to the world. But the incoming now British ambassador to the US, Lord Peter Mandelson, well, he decided to take to the airwaves earlier today and say this.
I consider my remarks about President Trump as ill-judged and wrong. I think that he has won fresh respect. He certainly has from me, and that is going to be the basis of all the work I do as His Majesty's ambassador in the United States.
Looks like a hostage video.
Totally like a hostage video. I mean, I quite enjoy watching that because he is so pained spitting those words out. He's hating it, but he knows he has to do it. Look, I mean, I would actually say that one of the things that's amazed me about Donald Trump, and there's quite a lot, he has completely shifted the political paradigm across the world, right? I mean, you've now got... Who would have imagined 4 years ago, if you could have predicted that Peter Mandelson will appear on Fox News saying that Donald Trump's a good man and a great person? There's been a total paradigm shift with the re-election of Trump for his second term. And... yeah, people like Peter Mandelson are going to have to eat it up.
The thing that, sorry, I'm going to say the thing is, Trump will love it because he not only wants this attention from people, but he also wants someone to repent, if you like. He wants to people who are not his fans. He wants them too. So that's very clever.
That on repeat.
Yeah,
so he'll love it. But also, the thing is, Trump wants to do a state visit here. So he wants to keep in with the Brits, never mind anything else. A 45-minute call with Keir Starmer.
He wants to keep in with the royal family.
Well, he wants to keep in with the Brits so he can get a state visit. It's like he wants to get the Nobel Peace Prize so, and somehow build luxury flats in Gaza. So it's never mind the Gazan people or keeping peace in the Middle East. That's what he wants.
Peter Mandelson, for me, he makes me feel sick. He's all that is wrong about UK politics. You know, he's the epitome of the establishment. As you said, he's been let go for, was it corruption, Patrick?
I'll have to check that.
Well, he was let go for...
with the Hinduja brothers.
For misdemeanours, let's say that, in the past. It's well documented in many newspapers, his links, apparent links to Jeffrey Epstein. For me, he is all that is wrong with UK politics. I don't know what... Thank you for correcting me, Nina. I don't know why Trump is welcoming him. I think maybe he's drawing him in and he's going to spit him out at a later stage.
Well, possibly. I mean, he's after taking it in that sense, isn't he? I think there's that famous picture, isn't there, of Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein? But I think Peter Mandelson denies any wrongdoing when it comes to any involvement.
I mean, the odd thing about this is I'm not totally sure that Peter Mandelson is the ideal pick to reset a difficult relationship between the Labour government and now it's Donald Trump. If Harris had won, the Starmer government would have had no problem. But this government under Starmer is going to run concurrently with Trump's second term. I think I would have put somebody in who was much more of a bridge between the two rather than somebody who's so associated with the Labour Party.
Well, like who, for instance?
Does he get any immunity?
Does he get a moderate Tory?
No, why would a Labour government put a Tory ambassador in?
They're supposed to be diplomatic appointments, not party political appointments.
The thing is, J.D. Vance called him Hitler, and he is the Vice President.
All right, on this, because there's another story I want to squeeze in. OK, so King Charles personally ordered the renaming of a Navy submarine. Apparently, it was going to be HMS Agincourt, but he wanted it renamed to avoid upsetting the French. Well, is this... I hate to say this, but, like, is the King too woke?
It's not woke. It's politics. Because I mean, I'm no fan of Charles. No, but the royal family are used by the government in soft power.
Boatloads of people across every flipping day.
The first state visit was to France. Now we need to keep France on side because we need to sort out the boats, don't we? So you need to keep Macron and the French government on side. Yes, absolutely.
So we can talk about bearing a grudge. Yeah. My God. Yeah. I mean, if our relationship with the French is so appallingly bad that the name of a submarine is going to unravel our political relationship, well, what next? I came here today via Waterloo. Presumably that's got to change, hasn't it? Yeah, I mean, that's a bit racist, isn't it? I mean, this
but they can use that as a look what we've done for you.
Well, it's just such trivial.
Patrick, I was sitting on this settee of the week when he was the coronation, and I said this is going to be the wokest king we've ever seen, and he's not disappointing. I mean,
define woke.
Pathetic.
Define pathetic.
Well,
he's incredibly worried about offending people, even on something very trivial. That would be my
the Queen never offended anyone, so why should Charles be?
The way he dealt with Ngozi Fulani, I think the way He said repeatedly diversity is our greatest strength, or all of this stuff. Had sustainable baubles on his Christmas tree a couple of years ago. Climate activism. I think there's a case to say he's
very woke.
I think woke is completely the wrong thing. He has always been keen on cultural diversity. He's always gone to mosques. He's gone to all other places of worship. He should do that.
Right.
And if he
renaming a sub because we're sort of worried it might offend a few French people.
No,
named after a battle from yonks ago. I mean, really.
I agree.
This shows
trivial.
I think what was meant by woke here, it shows an over-sensitivity to other people, which almost should be considered offensive by them. The French are not that thin-skinned.
They are. Let me tell you, they are.
Bit racist, Nina.
You've offended the French now, Nina, than we hear.
No, I adore the French. I love the French, but they'll be the first to tell you they're thin-skinned.
OK, all right, good stuff. Well, when I come back, more front pages and an astonishing video of a state-of-the-art fighter jet that appears to just fall out the sky. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As we kick off 2025, many of us might be thinking about a bit of a wardrobe refresh, especially if you're over 50 and you feel like the high street doesn't quite cater to you.
Indeed. That's where our next guest, Mel Tillett, comes in. She's in the studio with us now.
Mel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. That you are this accidental influence. I love that you said that's the first time.
Yeah, it is. That's the first time I've heard it.
You can have that
yes,
for free on
thank
GB.
you so much. It's quite true.
Tell us about your following. Obviously, an influencer that many people might typically think of would be someone in their teens, someone in their 20s, someone who's particularly social media savvy, using TikTok. Talk to us about your brand of influencer.
Well, our influencer, my kind of influence is over the older age group, the over 50s. For my business, I do a lot of live videos. I'll do them early in the morning at 7:30, which sounds ridiculous, but I know my ladies are up and about at that time having a cup of coffee or whatever that might be. And just being honest about day-to-day life. So my dogs are running about, my grandchildren are even sometimes in them, one thing and another. So it's just been purely by accident that I've got this really nice, loyal following and I get lovely messages off ladies. I'll do things like, I'll tell them when I'm going for a mammogram and I'll say, come on, everybody go for your mammogram.
That's brilliant.
All sort of health-conscious things. I've been a lot heavier than I am now, and I've slimmed down and lost some weight. I've been talking about that journey as well. And then ladies will ask me questions on the videos, and we chat about all sorts of different things. And now I'm getting messages every day, and people are loving the clothing ranges that we do. And it's just, I started off as a business, that's purely what I did, but it's turned out into this other... I get recognised places I go now, which is really weird.
It must be a huge benefit to your business as well.
We employ around about 50 people.
Wow.
And I'm quite open to my audience and saying, you know, whilever you keep buying offers, whilever you're loving our products and our clothing, you're keeping 50 people in jobs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Let's do the rest of the front pages then. So let's start with the Daily Mirror. Reeves Revolution. There's a story there at the top, though. Love Island Jack given jail term for dog attack. This is Jack Fincham, whose dog apparently attacked a jogger. He's 6 months, I think he's got 6 months. 6 months in prison.
Same as you get for sexually assaulting a woman, then.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Or less, of course, than Hugh Edwards. Sorry, more than Hugh Edwards. 6 months more. Anyway, whatever. Right, The Sun. Cops probe assault at United Legends party. A bouncer has apparently been headbutted at Nicky Butt's 50th. So that party's gone exactly as you'd imagine. The Times. Dying bill safeguard could be abandoned. MPs backing change. Caster. This is the assisted dying bill. So apparently there might be some changes to that, and it might not be happening. So there we go. Right. OK. Let's just deal very quickly, guys, with this dog attack thing. I don't expect everyone to be across all of the detail, but is it not interesting in Britain at the moment? Well, I was alluding to it there that you could do something that, like Hugh Edwards did, for example, and avoid prison, whereas you have a dog who bites a jogger. And you do get 6 months. Now, a lot of people are watching this and say, well, Jack Fincham apparently had previously had a warning already, and his dog did bite a jogger. So,
look,
you know...
It's wrong. I know Jack.
Right.
OK?
Right.
Nice lad. Obviously, I don't condone the dog biting. I've got 2 of these dogs myself. They're very powerful dogs. You've got to keep them under control. I've had mine trained. I believe so did he. But they are animals, so I don't know the circumstances here. But as you say, 6 months prison when we've got paedophiles that have got pictures of babies being abused, not get in prison.
Well, the distinction there is this, isn't it? I mean, there is actual physical injury caused by this dog, right?
So that
is a difference.
He's got 6 weeks in prison, not 6 months. That's my mistake, but still, the prison sentence.
Yeah, I'm still very worried about two-tier justice in Britain.
Yeah.
You need to get to the bottom of the cases, but it doesn't seem to align. But I am in favour, if you want to own a relatively dangerous dog, you're responsible for the damage it does.
Absolutely.
I get that.
And I mean, you know, the thing is, and why do you need a powerful dog? You say you've got two. I know because you've got a pub.
Cane Corsairs. No, I've been robbed at home. I've got a lovely family.
So I understand that.
Mine are well-trained, docile dogs.
I'm saying I'm not attacking you. Yeah.
All animals can be dangerous. My dogs get bitten by little terriers all the time.
Right.
You know.
But so I don't understand why you would need a normal, you know, recreational dog like that.
Because no one will burgle your house.
Fine. Now, look, I've been teasing this all show, and this is a... oh, no, OK. This one is, of course, Nigel Farage having a rather bizarre experience that I imagine is a lot like taking magic mushrooms and finding yourself on national television. Not, of course, that I would know anything about that. You'd have to try to ride it, I think. I think you'd have to try. You'd try to do the old switch and go, all right, if you're going to stitch me up like that, I'm getting on that dragon's back. I'm getting on that dragon's back. Anyway,
would they have done that to a Labour MP? I don't think they would.
Mind you, that's the first time I've seen Farage lost for words on television ever.
Yeah, well,
I think they'd have done it to anybody who was a guest that day.
I think it's good telly, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of Nigel Farage, don't get me wrong, but I don't understand what everyone expects him to do. It's like, oh, here comes a massive dragon. Like, right. Okay.
What is the correct reaction to that?
All right, see it. Anyway, right, we've all had a bit of turbulence or some dodgy airline food, but this US Air Force pilot has definitely had the worst flying experience ever after a mid-flight malfunction during a training flight in Alaska yesterday. I think you could see it just at the end of that video there. The pilot did safely parachute up and then get out. But apparently, I was looking online, but apparently that plane's worth like $82 million.
Yeah.
And it's just gone up in smoke, hasn't it, really? But he was taken to a local army hospital. But there you go. Just shows you whatever can happen, doesn't it, really, when you're flying one of those things? Incredible footage, though.
Well, it's incredible that you can eject, you know, and survive.
Yeah, apparently it's really hard on the body, though, ejecting. It's not just like, oh, I'm out now. It's like, wallop, there you go, and it breaks bones.
You've watched Top Gun, haven't you?
Yes, there we go. Right, coming up next, it's Headliners, presented tonight, of course, by the wonderful Josh Howie. Josh, what's coming up on your show, my good man?
We have Scottish people who think that they are the victims of the British Empire. We have Blunt Knives, we have Cressida Wetton, we have Lewis Schaefer, and we have the return of the death penalty, and we have £3,000 spent on migrant clothes per day, which is a little bit more than this outfit here.
Well, you look great. You look absolutely fantastic, and these days incredibly well groomed as well. So, Josh, good luck, mate. Always a rip-roaring show. Interesting what you mentioned there. We didn't talk about it tonight, actually. We haven't really got time to get into it now. But there was a story that broke earlier on about a new poll, wasn't there? In the wake of the Axel Rudy Cabana case.
Support for return of capital punishment is up.
55%. 55%.
And young people. A lot of young people, yeah.
I'm for it.
Did I understand somebody's going to be executed on Headliners? Is that what he said?
Oh, no, look...
just discussing it.
You know, a few people on this channel have died on air, but, you know, it's not quite in that way, no. But there you go. Well, look, Headliners is up next, so make sure that you do keep it GB News for the next hour. There's plenty to go out in tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so they're going to have a great time. I'd just like to say thank you very much again to my wonderful panel. I always really, really, really enjoy these Wednesday evenings, so thank you. And thank you to everybody as well who's been watching and listening. As ever, I'll be back tomorrow from 9 p.m, where, no doubt, I'll have a few surprises up my sleeve for you, so I hope to see you there. All the very best. Good evening, everybody. See you tomorrow at 9.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. I'm here with your latest its Met Office weather update for GB News. It's going to be a bit chilly for many of us overnight, and with that there is the risk of some icy patches developing, especially towards the north. Meanwhile, further south, we're still under the influence of an area of low pressure which is just off the coast of France, but it is bringing some heavy rain to immediate southern coastal parts, particularly towards the southeast. A lot of that is clearing away though as we go overnight, and so for many it's going to be a dry picture with some clear skies, but worth noting across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular, we are going to have some showers feeding in from the north, and with temperatures falling close to, if not a little bit below freezing, particularly in rural spots, that brings the risk of some frost and also some icy patches. The icy patches are going to be more of an issue across parts of northern Scotland where the showers are more frequent, and worth bearing in mind these showers could bring some sleet or snow, particularly over any modest higher ground. Also some icy patches likely across parts of Northern Ireland too, especially towards the north where we have some showers feeding in. A few showers perhaps for northwest England and also around northern and western parts of Wales, but otherwise once that rain in the southeast has cleared through, it is looking largely dry as we go through into tomorrow morning. Then through tomorrow itself, again lots of fine weather on offer, plenty of sunshine, just a few showers to watch out for, particularly towards some northern and western coastal areas, but most places avoiding these, and yes, just a bit of cloud bubbling up through the afternoon, but generally a fine and often sunny picture. That being said, temperatures around average for the time of year, so still a bit of a chilly feel to things. Later on we will have a system coming in from the west that's going to push through overnight into Friday and lying across southeastern parts as we go through Friday itself. Behind that though, a lot of dry weather following in, but it does look a bit cloudier than tomorrow, and so sunshine's going to be at a bit more of a premium into the weekend, and there will be a northwest-southeast split with northwestern parts seeing most of the wet and windy weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Don't miss out as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
First, mate, we had lockdowns. Then we had soaring energy costs. Then we had a hike in national insurance for employers. Then we had soaring wage costs. And now the government expects people like you to monitor what people say in boozers. And if you don't, you might get sued. I bet you feel like saying cheers to them, don't you?
Look, it just looks like another war on pubs. You know, remember they tried to stop smoking outside as well. Luckily, they rethought that. But look, we've got everything stacked against us, Martin. And the last thing I need to do is go and get in people's conversations. At the end of the day, a pub is like an extension to your home. You know, it's a public house. Friends go to speak. Friends go to meet, unwind after work. It's none of my business what you're talking about. Any good publican, and myself included, anyone that was rude to anyone or on purpose, they want to offend people or they want to dig people out, antagonise them, of course I'm going to step in and say, behave yourself or you go. But look, how can I be on social media talking about everything, transgender, immigration, and people not be allowed to do that at the bar or do that at the table of a pub? It's ridiculous. And these ministers really do need to sort of look at this legislation and see where it could lead, because I'm not going to stop anyone speaking in my pub. Again, if they're trying to antagonise people or they're rude or trying to start trouble, they get thrown out the front door, and any publican worth their salt is going to do that as well. But we're not there to police people's conversations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome. It's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out, why are illegal immigrants just so dapper? Who thinks that the solution to knife crime is to turn them into spoons? And do you fancy a drink down your local little pub? I'm Josh Howie, and tonight I'm joined by best friends and flatmates Christys Wetton and Lewis Schaefer to take you through Thursday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Josh, thank you. The top stories. The Chancellor has backed the expansion of Heathrow Airport in a speech outlining her plans to boost economic growth. Rachel Reeves claims a new runway will connect the UK to the world and open up new opportunities, including creating 100,000 jobs. The London Mayor Sadiq Khan says he can't support those plans which, quote, would damage our environment and place huge demand on our transport infrastructure. Sir Keir Starmer was challenged over the government's plans for growth at Prime Minister's questions. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch mainly focused on the Employment Rights Bill, repeatedly asking if it would be dropped because it fails his tests for delivering growth. She also accused Sir Keir of misleading the House.
It is business that creates growth. Our economy is built by entrepreneurs, risk takers, and the hard graft of working people. They know that you can't tax your way to growth. You can't borrow your way to growth. You can't legislate your way to growth. Other countries are serious about freeing business from red tape. President Trump is doing it in America. Argentina is taking a chainsaw to regulations. Even the EU is not going as far as this left-wing government. This bill will put us at the bottom of the pack. Add it to the jobs tax, the family business tax. It's no wonder wealth creators are fleeing Britain in droves.
The Prime Minister, in a reference to Liz Truss, warned Ms Badenoch that she'd become the next lettuce, claiming the Conservatives left the economy in a mess.
Mr Speaker, I understand she likes straight talking. She's talking absolute nonsense. She knows, and anybody who understands anything about the bill or any employment law will know you can't start in the morning and go to the tribunal in the afternoon. Now, Mr Speaker, we know she's not a lawyer. She's clearly not a leader. If she keeps on like this, she is going to be the next lettuce.
And Donald Trump has signed the Laken-Riley Act, the first legislation to get his signature since his return to the White House. The bill is named after a Georgia nursing student who was murdered last year by a Venezuelan man. It requires the detention of unauthorized immigrants accused of theft and violent crimes.
The law I'm signing today, the Department of Homeland Security will be required to detain all illegal aliens who have been arrested for theft, burglary, larceny, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, murder, or any crime that results in death or serious injury. In addition, for the first time ever, this act gives state governments the ability to sue the federal government for immediate injunctive relief if any future administration ever again refuses to enforce the immigration laws of the United States.
And those are the latest headlines. It's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's top stories, usually with 3 top comedians. We've got a great show. I won't say who that was about. So this is a very exciting show because my friend Andy is there. He's watching with his parents, and you two are the choices. You know, you're allowed to have like a secret choice of if you could have a secret affair. Yeah. So you are Andy's dad's choice, and you are Andy's mum's choice.
Brilliant. Dad's choice. I don't even get the mom.
I think you probably are secretly on both, aren't you, Lewis?
You know what? I'm flexible in my age.
You would take wherever the attention came from.
You know what? Who's ever going to allow me to see my kids? That's all I care.
They're in their 20s. That's your kids. They could allow you to see.
They could stop it.
They have approval over your sexual partners.
Well, the mother calls them up and says, you know, don't see. I don't want to discuss it.
Yeah, no, you did bring it up. OK, let's kick off with a look at some of the front pages. The Daily Mail, Chancellor's Heathrow plan flies straight into turbulence. Telegraph, Heathrow will not be ready until 2050. So that's the end of that story. The Guardian, Chancellor's Heathrow expansion plan hits turbulence over climate. Someone's got the same joke writer. So more front pages in a second. But first, Cresta, what do you make of the Daily Mail then, this big...
Yeah, Chancellor's Heathrow plan flies straight into turbulence.
Hey.
It's going to be a bumpy ride for Reeves. She's got opposition. Sadiq Khan doesn't like it. Of course he doesn't. Obviously Ed Miliband doesn't like it. So she's saying that it'll bring 100,000 squillion jobs or something. That
was the exact numbers that she is very... That's the kind of detail that she's known for.
And I bet she hasn't done any research to back it up. Yeah, so she thinks this is the answer to growth, and she's going to have problems because loads of her party don't feel that way, and they don't want it because they think it's anti-green.
Well, I think the other problem is it's just going to take decades. It's going to take another 25 years before it opens anyway.
There's that.
But this was approved in 2017. In 2000, and then the legal stuff finally got approved in 2021. So it's not like, oh, hey, I've got an idea, guys. Let's have a new runway at Heathrow. It's just going on with what's already
Brexit again,
happened.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Has anybody mentioned this runway in the last, 3, 4, 5 years? I haven't heard anybody mention it.
Used to be big news, right?
It used to be big news. And how did they decide? This is the problem with the Labour Party in this country. They think like they're councillors, and it's I don't want to say Southwark Council, but I'll say Southwark Council, that this is her great idea, is have a runway. It's also, why Heathrow? Why Heathrow? I don't even want to say why Heathrow, because it could be perceived that I'm...
Well, because it's the only international hub that we have in this country. But what do you think about Ed Miliband saying, I'm going to resign if it happens?